When you think of some of the greatest college football games in recent history, a lot of them come from some of the biggest rivalry games in the history of football. Who could ever forget about the Iron Bowl game between Auburn and Alabama, where Bama missed the field goal attempt and the short kick is returned by Auburn all the way for a touchdown? Or better yet, how about those amazing rivalry games from the 90s between Florida and Florida State, and FSU misses their field goals wide right to lose the game? There are so many games to choose from, and they all made watching college football rivalries that much more fun. Today, we're going to break down the top 5 college football rivalries. Be sure to let us know which rivalries you like best in the comments section below, and if we missed any that you think should be on this list, let us know as well. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to see more of our videos. Okay, so before I start the top 5 list of college football rivalries, I want to make sure that everyone knows that this is just my opinion on what I think are the best 5 in all of college football. Everyone has their favorites, and I know there are some strong feelings on their favorite teams or alma maters. There are a ton of rivalries to choose from, and these 5 are based on history, story behind how the rivalry started, and how they have made an impact on college football. Don't see your favorite school or their rival on this list? Let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts. So, let's start with number 5, and that's the Army-Navy game. For more than a century, over 125 years to be exact, the Army cadets and Navy midshipmen have been going at it on the football field. A bitter rivalry on the field. These two schools started their annual tradition with their first game played on November 29, 1890. 1890! Just to put that into perspective, the young football players in this first game were the same Army and Navy officers fighting in the Spanish-American War 8 years later. Pretty amazing if you ask me. Navy has come out better than Army in this rivalry. Out of the 124 games played, Navy has beat Army 62 times, and they've tied 7. The only time they didn't play this annual Battle of Service Academies is twice during World War I, when the game was ordered canceled by the War Department from 1928 to 1929 due to some eligibility issues. In 1909, because a player died from their injuries in their game against Harvard, and from 1894 to 1898 because of an argument between an Army general and a Navy admiral after one of the games, which almost resulted in them dueling. Still, this rivalry has produced some memorable moments from these schools that have produced NFL players like Roger Staubach, Mike Wall, Phil McConkey, Alejandro Villanueva, and many others. Not to mention a few Heisman winners like Doc Blanchard, Glenn Davis, and Pete Dawkins from Army, and Joe Bellino, Roger Staubach from Navy. This rivalry will always go down as one of the best in college football, and that pre-game formal quote-unquote prisoner exchange and walk-on with the two brigades is just amazing to watch. Another rivalry that has a long history is the in-state rivalry of Alabama and Auburn and the Iron Bowl, which ends up number 4 on our list. The Iron Bowl has given us some of the wildest games in college football history. These two legendary SEC teams have played just as long as the Army-Navy rivalry. Since 1893, these two schools have played against each other 88 times, with Bama leading the series 50-37, with one tie happening in the 1907 season. That 1907 game was pretty wild and was the last time the teams met for 40 years. The game ended in a 6-6 tie, but that game was played in a nasty, muddy field in Birmingham. The two schools had disagreements about literally almost everything. How to choose the refs for the game, when to schedule the game, and the really poor behavior of the fans that they chose to pause the rivalry until 1948, when they finally brought it back and even made the rivalry more interesting with the brand new implementation of the Foy ODK sportsmanship trophy that goes to the winner of the Iron Bowl. Most recently in the history of this rivalry, the winner of the Foy ODK Sportsmanship Trophy went to Auburn in arguably the craziest ending of the Iron Bowl and maybe even all of college football, next to the Cal-Stanford ending. In what is now called the Kick 6 game, Auburn player Chris Davis was in the end zone, waiting for Bama to kick a last-second field goal in the 2013 Iron Bowl. Both teams were ranked in the top 5 that year, and the result of that year's game had huge implications to who would go to the SEC Championship and potentially the BCS National Championship game. With a tie score and 32 seconds left, Bama wanted to kick a 57-yard field goal to win the game. The kick was short, and Auburn's Chris Davis returns the failed field goal attempt 109 yards to the opposite end zone to give Auburn the win. What a finish to one of the most memorable Iron Bowl games in history. The rivalry between Auburn and Alabama has divided families, friends, and even neighbors. But one thing is for sure, the state of Alabama, when these two play in the Iron Bowl, an incredible matchup between two powerhouse schools. Another great matchup between two power schools that takes the number 3 spot on our list is the Alabama-Georgia rivalry. Now, this rivalry doesn't get as much attention as the Bama-Auburn rivalry or the Florida-Georgia rivalry. I get that. But this matchup makes the top 3 on our list because of some of the great games these two teams have given us over recent years. Ever since Kirby Smart became the head coach at Georgia, they have given Alabama a tough fight. And these two teams have won the SEC championship 10 of the last 12 years. Let us not forget that incredible matchup they just had in September. An incredible game by both teams, great comeback from Georgia, and an amazing performance from Bama's young 17-year-old wide receiver and future star, Ryan Williams. This rivalry is number 3 on the list because when these two schools meet up, they are usually playing for the SEC championship or in the playoffs for the national title. They've played a total of 74 times since 1895, with Bama leading the series 44-26 with 4 ties. This rivalry will continue to provide memorable moments as long as the two programs continue to compete for national championships. Number 2 on our list is a rivalry everyone knows as the Red River rivalry. Yes, that's right, number 2 on our list of college football rivalries is Texas and Oklahoma. This rivalry is so big and so crazy that the stadium is divided in half, so Oklahoma fans sit in one half of the stadium in red, while Texas fans sit on the other half of the stadium in burnt orange. The hatred between these two schools is as bad as it gets. And I guess the reason for that hatred is not only because these two teams have been constantly one of the top 2 teams in the country for decades, but because of how close they are geographically. They play the Red River rivalry game in October every year to coincide with the Texas State Fair along the Red River. What stadium is large enough along the Red River to hold all of these Texas and Oklahoma fans? Well, that's the legendary Cotton Bowl, a neutral site in Dallas on the banks of the Red River that can hold over 90,000 football fans. Texas has beaten Oklahoma 63 times out of the 119 games played since 1900. There are far too many coaches and players to mention in this video, but I'll point out one memorable moment from Barry Schwitzer's time as head coach of the Oklahoma Sooners. Back in 1984, both Texas and Oklahoma were ranked in the top 3 nationally. Barry Schwitzer decided to wear a Beat Texas hat during the Red River shootout game while the Sooners were beating the Longhorns 15-10. Schwitzer and his first-year offensive coordinator and future Texas head coach Mack Brown decided to go for a 2-point conversion after their touchdown, but failed their attempt. Oklahoma botched a snap later in the game, and the ball rolled into the end zone for a Texas safety and a 15-12 Oklahoma lead. Texas held the ball late in the game and was about to score a touchdown, but the Sooners defensive back Keith Stanberry caught the ball for an interception in the end zone. Or so they thought. The refs called it an incomplete pass, which sent Barry Schwitzer through the roof. Texas would end up kicking a field goal, and the game ended in a 15-15 tie. But with pouring rain and wet conditions, along with the questionable officiating, not to mention Brian Bosworth's legendary haircut and hard hitting, this made it one of the most memorable games in this rivalry. There are far too many memorable moments of this rivalry to fit into this video, so let me know if you think I should make a separate video about the Red River rivalry. Let me know in the comments section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to see more of these types of videos. Okay, we are now at the number 1 college football rivalry, and this one is filled with downright hatred towards not only these two schools, but the two states. The hatred is so bad that these two states nearly fought a battle in 1835 to claim the right to have Toledo in their state. Yeah, that's right. You know I'm talking about Michigan-Ohio State. This rivalry is so big it doesn't even need a nickname. It is simply called The Game, and it hosts 2 of the most popular and most storied college football programs in the country. These 2 programs have the most wins and the 3rd most wins in the history of Division I football. Dating back to their first meeting in 1897, Ohio State and Michigan have played 119 times, with Michigan winning 61 games, Ohio State winning 51 games, and they both tied 6 times. These programs have produced some of the best football players in all of college football. Ohio State players like Dick LeBeau, Chris Carter, and Eddie George played against Michigan players like Desmond Howard, Charles Woodson, and the great Tom Brady. From the 1950 Snow Bowl that produced 45 punts in the worst blizzard in Ohio history, to the 2006 Game of the Century between the number 1 and number 2 ranked teams, these teams are used to playing with everything on the line. Whether it's for a Big Ten title, a bid for the Rose Bowl, or solidifying their place for the national championship, the rivalry game between Ohio State and Michigan usually lives up to the hype and produces some of the most memorable moments in college football. Legendary coaches like Schembechler, Yost, Harbaugh, Tressel, Hayes, and Meyer give us stories to relate to when talking football across multiple generations. A storied rivalry between two of the top schools in the country with usually the most to lose in this rivalry game. There you have it, my top 5 college football rivalries. There's no doubt they will continue to bring more memorable games in the future for college football fans. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.